We'll call the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for November 24th, 2015 to order, please, with a roll call.
Trustee Frankel.
Present.
Trustee McClurry.
She's on the phone.
Trustee Rosenberg.
Here.
Trustee Ruggiero.
Present.
Trustee Smith. Trustee Taylor.
I'm here.
President Mayer.
Here.
Student Representative Hood.
Here.
Okay. The reason that Trustee Dr. McClurry is on the phone is she just got out of the hospital after a 20-day stay, so she'll be joining us on the phone. She's a little lightheaded still and has a recovery period, so we have her on the phone. Okay, if you would, please stand for the pledge. One of those Reno High football players that ran for miles is going to lead us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was so nice. Could you come up to the podium and introduce yourself, please? And bring your sidekick there, too.
Hello, my name is David Zabrowski. I'm a senior at Reno High. And this is my friend Gabriel Hoover. He is also a senior.
Two seniors
Yes.
making up class time.
We need public meeting hours for our AP government class.
Oh, AP
So,
government class.
yeah.
Well, pay attention. You're going to learn a lot.
We hope
Nice
so.
to have you.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Okay, thanks. See, now if your instructor doesn't believe, have him come on to the computer and he can see you. Proof that you were here. Okay. We'll go to public comment. I have two cards. The first one says 901, but I thought maybe you'll wait till the item then, 901. Okay. And the next is John Odom. Please state your name for the record and remember 3 minutes.
My name is John Ohm, spelled O-H-M, like in unit of electricity, which is resistance, just coincidentally. I'm here basically I opened up the RAG, as Mr. Rosenberg might refer to it as, is the Reno Gazette-Journal, and I opened up to it in regards to Miss Tracy Davis. I've never met Miss Tracy Davis, but based on what is presented to me in this newspaper article, I think that this is ridiculous as far as the consideration of the board itself. If the board deems, and if it can possibly be written within the law presently, this might be considered like at a future date, but to do it at this point in time, I think it's appalling. Let me see if there's any other points in here and I'm sure Miss Davis is a nice person and everything else, but I just think that this is, it's crazy. Another thing I noticed here in the article is that the district entered this school year with $29 million deficit in its operating budget. Davis and her cabinet assert the school system can't afford to build enough new schools. This is the item that I'm citing here, and I have an asterisk on it. It says, to fund school construction and renovation, Washoe County voters will be asked to increase up to 5 taxes. Here we go again. Registration fees, sales tax, the one that affects me is property taxes, hotel room taxes, and real estate transfer taxes. And this will be on the November 2016 ballot for us to vote once again, as we did in 2014, and have that dog and pony show again. So I don't understand why that would be even proposed. the 1.2 or 1.4 billion dollars that was denominated for the educational system in this last legislative session, I thought that that would take care of such menial expenses as $29 million for construction for the school. I guess that's about it. I find it amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else that wants to make public comment at this time? If you, okay, okay. He wants to wait until it's presented. Did you want to see that? Okay. If you have cards, the attorney has to look at them first, and then they come over to me, and I put you in the stack, and we have two that are waiting for the item. Anyone else that wants to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 105, adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same signal. Passes unanimously. Let the record show. Okay. Board reports.
Barbara's on the line.
Barbara,
Yes,
are you there?
Barbara. Yes, I am, Howard.
Okay. Hi, Barbara.
Hi.
Okay. Next is item 2.01, board reports. Veronica Frankel, please.
I'm going to just pass and no report at this time.
Okay. Mr. Rosenberg.
Doing the same. No report at this time.
Okay.
I'll pass. All right, let's just keep the theme. I'll pass.
Okay.
I'm not going to pass because we had a wonderful meeting today with Doors to Recovery and Stacy Mathewson, who is a very strong advocate for prevention programs and is currently working on developing a partnership with the school district. And I just want to compliment and praise the work of staff today, Dr. Green and the options department, our communications team, our deputy and our superintendent. President Mayer attended the meeting. We have exciting news coming February 1st at the State of Education regarding this wonderful partnership, and I look forward to sharing more with the public. And that is it, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
Okay. I want to thank the food service department. I got a call from a parent and wanted to meet me over at the school that their two children attend. I went over and it was on the food service, and these children needed special dietary food, and they wanted me to see, and sure enough they got they got their dietary needs fulfilled, and in fact, it looked better than what I had for breakfast and dinner. So I sat down and had it with them, and it was quite tasty. But the point is, the parents wanted to thank the lady in the cafeteria and food service and everything for meeting a requirement that didn't need to be met, because of this dietary need for these children. And her point was that the school district and the food service go out of their way to provide a special diet for these two youngsters. For these two youngsters every day of the school year. I was fortunate to go to the student advisory board meeting this week, and Mr. Hood, did you want to say anything about the meeting? I just got to say, you're rolling with that committee, and we really appreciate it. Every school is represented. Incline's member came all the way down the hill for that meeting, so it was great. And then we had our National School Board Association Convention here in Reno this weekend and had some wonderful speakers and wonderful learning experience for the Board of Trustees. Okay. Board
My turn?
report, yeah.
So I want to actually thank Trustee Ruggiero for some of the work she has done with Stacy Mathewson Foundation and getting us connected to do some amazing things for our community, which we will bring forth. And we're excited about that opportunity and having a partnership with Doors to Recovery and that program. Kyle is an amazing student advisory president, and he leads a great meeting, and so he's shy, and I don't know why he's not talking about the things that our students are discussing, because they're really attacking issues like mental illness, how do we stop bullying and reporting. They're speaking on some pretty tough issues in there, and those of us that attend knows that Kyle does a good job. So Kyle, I'm giving you a shout out since you won't shout out yourself. As you know, we had our strategic blueprint draft presented last week about how we could attack growth, and that has went over well. And last week I spoke to 80 volunteers for the Foster Grandparents Luncheon, and it went over so well that they want me to come back next month, and they want me to come back every month and talk, because it was great because they got to ask questions, and they volunteer in our schools, and we talk about teaching and learning, and they talk about law, so they're really invested in our district and our kids, so that's amazing. Michael Dermody Properties donated $25,000 to the food pantry, and as you know, we have several schools that have food pantries, and kids who don't have opportunities to have food, even on the weekend, have opportunities to go and get food in a safe environment. So we want to thank Dermody Properties for that donation. Yeah. And we continue to partner with the food bank to attack hunger in our community, which is wonderful. The president has been quite shy today about the Nevada Association of School Boards. We are utterly excited that we won 3 awards, and John Mayer himself won Outstanding Director of the Year. Congratulations, Mr. Mayer.
Thank you.
And we all know Dr. McClory, who has put in many, many years and tireless fight to take care of all children and make sure all children are successful, won the award for Veteran School Board Member of the Year. Congratulations, Dr. McClory. And then we are absolutely ecstatic to announce that Dr. Dana Ryan won the District Level Administrator Award for all the work she's done with our CTE and Signature Academies and pathways we're doing for kids. So we are really excited about the work that we're doing in the district, and that will be the end of my report.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to consent item 3.01, approval of the consent agendas, items 3.02 through 3.08. Are there any that you wish to pull at this time? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
I move to accept the agenda.
Wrong motion.
Consent agenda, sorry.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries unanimously. Let the record show. Okay, okay, we've got all those out of the way there. Now, moving to items for presentation, discussion, information, and/or action. Presentation by board council, discussion by the board, and consideration of possible action to approve the written employment agreement between Superintendent of Schools, for the Superintendent of Schools, between Ms. Tracy M. Davis and the Board of Trustees on the behalf of the school district for possible action. The presenter is Mr. Mike Malloy.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, trustees, Superintendent Davis, and members of the public. My name is Mike Malloy. I'm the retained contracted board counsel for the Board of Trustees. And I'm presenting today because it was I who was asked by the board to write the written employment contract for the superintendent. That was back in the summer, and it's now the end of November nearly. So that period of time has not been without anything happening. I have worked by speaking to each of the trustees at one different time or another, and on several occasions with many trustees, about what they wanted to see and not see in a written contract for the superintendent. I used that information and worked regularly and pretty often on the phone, by email, and other discussions with Ms. Ann Morgan, who is, excuse me, I'm losing my voice already. She is the retained attorney, personal attorney for the superintendent. I've known Ann for about 40 years of doing this business. And, well, maybe that's not fair to her. She's not as old as I am.
She was 12.
But a long time, and I have a great deal of respect for Ann Morgan as a fine attorney and an ethical person. And she may wish to address the board after I do, if she wishes. I just wanted to inform you of that. In doing this, in the last 4 months of time since July 10th of this year, when Ms. Davis was formally appointed by a vote of the board to be the superintendent, that process has been an ongoing one of trying to hammer out a written document that is acceptable to at least a majority of the board. And sorry for having to do that all, this presentation, and water won't help me. I've learned that the hard way, thanks. Got some olive oil in my work, but anyway, where was I? It's been a process, and it has been a sincere process, and it has been an honest process, and we've arrived at this document after some back and forth, give and take, and real negotiations on behalf of each of our clients. That is the board on behalf, me on behalf of the board, and Ms. Morgan on behalf of her client, the superintendent. I would observe at the outset that the board has an obviously very important decision to make today. In fact, the determination of who the superintendent will be and for how long is probably the single most important decision a school board can make. And I've heard that not only here in my many years previous to the last, there was a hiatus of about 5 years or a little more longer when I did not represent this school district, but I also represent other school districts in the state, sorry. And I keep hearing that at every place I go, that is the single most important decision that a board can make. Recently, this board, I think it was last month or maybe the month before, probably in October, maybe even early November, the Board of Trustees, this board, participated in an all-day work session with the preeminent nationally recognized expert on what's called board governance. His name is Dr. Thomas Alsbury. That was an all-day work session of this Board of Trustees, addressing numerous topics of how to be a well-functioning board and all the aspects of that job that go into it. I sat through that. I didn't really contribute. I'm not a board member. Thanks. No worries. But one thing that he said really made an impression on me, and I'm assuming I believe it made an impression on all of you. And it struck me how right he is. He said perhaps the primary thing in his research and all over the country of school boards and school districts all over this country is that the primary thing that contributes to the academic success of the students in a school district is the stability of the superintendent position. In other words, if you have a lot of turnover, a lot of come and go, the students and their education is what pays the price. On the other hand, if you're a stable district with a stability in the superintendency position, then the academic success of the students is higher. And that's the ultimate goal here, after all, is it not, is to have academic success as best as we can get it of our students, the 65,000 of them that are in this school district. So with that in mind, I want to talk about some background here of how this has happened, how we've come to this day and this issue. You made the decision already on July 10th of this year as to who that superintendent would be. You didn't state how long that would be, and you didn't provide a written contract with all the terms that one finds in an employment contract for any high-level executive of a private or a public business. Since July 10th, the superintendent has been working without any written contract. And indeed, ever since earlier than that, on October 28th of last year, 2014, Tracy Davis was appointed by the then comprised school board as the interim superintendent. And at that time, she assumed all of the duties of the superintendency, and she she left the job that she had here prior to that day as deputy superintendent. I think she was originally hired in some position or another. I apologize for not knowing exactly which. It might have even been the deputy superintendency or some other key position at least, in 2012. So she's been here since 2012, as I understand it at least. And she was retained as the interim superintendent on October 28th of 14. At that time, she had been getting the compensation of deputy superintendent up to that day, and the board on that date, October 28th, raised her salary when they appointed her as interim superintendent by $3,000 a month. So ever since the 28th of October, a little more than a year ago now, of last year, October 28th of 14, not last October, she has been the superintendent. The deputy superintendent position that she had previously held did not get filled at all until September 8th of this year. So it went from October of 14 to September of 15 without anybody in the deputy position. And Kristen McNeil has now been made deputy superintendent on September 8th. Point here is, however, that at least to some extent, and if not entirely, the superintendent, Ms. Davis, has performed the functions of the superintendent, of course, because that was her job since October 28th, but she's also had to make sure that the duties of a deputy superintendent were at least accomplished until someone could be appointed to take them over, and that happened in September of this year. As I said, she received a $3,000 pay increase after October 28 of 2014. That made her annual salary from then on through today, with some adjustments for normal things that happen to everybody, I believe. I think it's my understanding that the annual salary of the superintendent today is $183,704 a year. Okay, so after 4 months of negotiation, here we are. I want to address the highlights of this document that is in front of you for consideration, and some of the issues that came up during the 4 months that we've been negotiating. First of all, let's talk about compensation, because after today's newspaper article, that's the big issue, of course. Understandably, it's a big issue. It has to be a big issue, and it always was a significant issue. But today highlighted how it can get a little bit out of control, I think. That's just my opinion. The monetary compensation for the superintendent under this contract that's proposed here for your approval, not today's salary, but the one that's proposed, the base salary is $238,000. Her previous salary, as I said, was $183,704. Rounding it off, that's a raise of $54,300 annually. That's also a raise monthly of $4,525. Now, Mr. Martinez, the previous superintendent, who left last year, was at the time that he left being paid a base salary, not benefits, just base salary, of about $250,000. So Ms. Davis is asking for a base annual salary of $238,000. The big issue here, which has caused the controversy, is, as reported in the Gazette Journal, they report today, at least as I read it, that Ms. Davis is seeking, and this contract would provide her, they say, with back pay to October 28th, 2014, and there'd be a different amount of compensation, presumably, from July 10 forward. I don't think there's any issue or dispute about her, pretty much her right to be paid whatever the base compensation may be going forward from July 10 at least. That is the day she was hired as the superintendent and is no longer the interim superintendent. They report, though, in the Gazette Journal that the back pay being sought by the superintendent in this contract back to October 28th to July 10th, they report that as $166,000, or at least the jump in compensation is how they reported it. That is nothing but an egregious error. I mean, that's a more than 50% error, because the real difference, the real back pay would be paid for that period of time, October 28 to July 10, is $58,321, a far cry from $166,000 as reported in the newspaper. That's a difference of $107,679. That's the size of that error in reporting. So that's to begin with. Now, let's talk about, now, let me back up. In my conversations with all of you, the trustees, it's no surprise, and I expected this, there are differences of opinion about a number of different things, and they are differences that reasonable people can hold as their opinion. That doesn't mean one is necessarily right and somebody else is wrong necessarily. It's just an opinion about how things ought to be and not be in some cases. I respect that. I definitely respect those who had strong opinions about some of these issues, and there were some, and there are some. This wasn't easy. Now, if you thought that all 7 superintendents were going to simply agree and say, "Oh, just put this in the contract, Mike," and I write it down, and that's what we're doing here, that isn't what happened at all. So I can guarantee you that. Anyway, let's talk about that back pay concept. You can see it in different ways, I suppose. But one thing I want to point out, and I was only informed of this finally today, the traditional history of this school district in regard to senior management employees. And I'm not talking about superintendents here. I'm talking about the Director of Human Resources. I'm talking about the Chief Operating Officer. I'm talking about the former Chief General Counsel, who was an interim General Counsel for a while, and the police chief. Two of those people came before Tracy Davis was appointed. They had, and two others came later, after she was appointed. All of them have been interim in that position, in the positions they hold now. They all received, without board consideration or direct approval, the same salary that they would get in the full-time position once they got it, from the start of the time they were interim. Now, you can make value judgments about whether that's the way to do business or not, but it is fair to say, at least, that that's been the tradition and the history in this district. So it's the same thing in that regard that Ms. Davis is seeking in regard to her back pay suggestion. Excuse me for 1 minute here. And I can, there are the figures that make that real number of $58,321 that show that down to the dollar consists of two parts. One in fiscal 14-15 would be $30,249, and in fiscal 15-16 it would be $28,072, adding up to $58,321. So that's the real number, not $166,000. And if anything if the public should understand anything, they can have their opinions legitimately about any of this, but they need to have the true facts, and that's the accurate one, not what was in the paper this morning. Now, okay, so the base salary of $238, as I pointed out, that's a raise of approximately $54,300 annually and $4,525 monthly. Pedro Martinez was making $250 when he left, base salary only. So let's talk now about another issue in the contract. I'm just going to go through these. The next one is the so-called longevity bonus. Now it's called that rather than just called an annual raise or something like that. The contract, as it's written and suggested for your approval, provides that Tracy Davis would get a 5% bonus of 5% of her base salary beginning on December 15th. And the reaction is, wow, December 15th, today's November 24th. That's only barely 3 weeks away. And we're going to give her a bonus already? Sure. Well, point is, if you look at it, there's two things about it. First of all, it creates a sticker shock concept. We've been negotiating this contract for 4 months, and if we were talking about 5% then coming up on December 15th, it wouldn't sound so bad as it sounds psychologically when you say it's going to be paid to her in 3 weeks. But the reality is it would have been the same thing, but it wouldn't have been, wow, you're already giving her a bonus and her contract's only 3 weeks old. Well, that's just not, that's not the right way to look at it. Now, it also is worth pointing out that on the longevity bonus, as it's so called, that prior superintendent, his contract provided for a 10% longevity bonus, so to speak. It's a way of getting a raise at the end of a year. And the way the superintendent looks at it, I'm informed by her counsel, is that that's because she's been here in that position effectively more than a year already, since October of 2014. Now, you can look at it differently, but that's the rationale for that, and there are rationales for saying it's not a good idea. I understand that too. But other people in the district have gotten some of these things. Mr. Martinez got 10%, and then the following year, if he'd stayed, he would have gotten 15%, as in states right in his contract. Ms. Davis is asking for 5%. The performance bonus, that's another section of this contract in the compensation section. This is different than what the prior superintendents got to the benefit of the school district. By the way, going back, let me digress. I'm sorry, I've missed this. With regard to the longevity bonus, no, I'm mixing it up now. I've been busy this morning, and now I'm mixing things up. Believe me, I've been busy this morning. So I'm sorry to go off track there. I'm mixing things up. I'm just thinking of the annuity thing, and I'm not the longevity bonus. I apologize. Let's talk about the performance bonus. Under this contract, the school board has what is stated right in the contract as, quote, full unfettered discretion to consider a performance bonus for overall exemplary performance, and then it goes on to say how that's determined by an evaluation system that will be determined by the board in its sole discretion with consultation with the superintendent, and that will begin on June 30, 2016, up to, not of, but up to a maximum of 10% of the base salary. Now, that would be a true merit increase, but it could be as little as 0, and it could be as much as 10%. It's up to the board, and it's based upon her performance. If you don't think she's doing a good job under this contract, for some reason, you don't have to give her a performance bonus at all. Or you could give her a little teeny one and make your point that way. The point here is that you have wide discretion. And she didn't oppose that. That was okay with the superintendent, and so that's how it's written. There is a provision in the compensation section of this document for a contribution on her behalf, a special contribution annually on her behalf to PERS, the Public Employees Retirement System in Nevada. Ms. Davis, as you may know, all of you know, and I don't know how many of the public know, she has worked in the Nevada PERS system for quite a while in Clark County, and then ever since she's been here as well. So you build up time in that system, and the longer time you have and the more you've contributed, the more you get ultimately someday when you retire. So that there's a provision in the contract for a 1/3 of base salary contribution annually to PERS, 1/3 of, not the base salary, but of the amount that would be paid on her behalf to PERS for her to buy 1 year. In other words, it would be made, the contribution would be made directly by the district, and it would be, the amount would be computed on how much it would cost for her to buy 1 year of PERS herself. So she would, if she wanted to buy a year, she'd have to pay the other 66 2/3%. The other superintendents each got the same thing. That is the last two, Morrison and Martinez. Okay, the other issue, which is proven to be more controversial than some, other than the back pay, that's the big one, of course, but other than that, the other issue in the contract that is proving to be controversial is with, and I understand this, is this vehicle allowance. The contract provides that the superintendent, rather than use a district-provided vehicle from now on, if this contract is approved, she would use her own vehicle and would be reimbursed for that to the tune of $800 a month. And it's written now, as it's written now, that she would also get mileage at the IRS regular rate that anybody can get mileage for if they are eligible for reimbursement, not just in the district, but in private enterprise or anywhere. at their rate. It's a less than $1. It's 58 cents actually per mile on the car. That would be in lieu of using a district car. So she would be responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the car if cars break. So you need to take them to get serviced. You also need to get insurance for your own purposes on it. So that would be presumably coming out of this $800. Now, that sounds like it's like maybe that's better financially for it, and it might be a little bit than having a district car, because you could have a pretty significant car payment, I suppose, not a Mercedes or a BMW or something, but you could have a car payment of around $800, I suppose. But regardless, she would be personally responsible for those payments. Now, I was also informed this morning that going back to 1998, the prior superintendent here, and maybe the ones before him, the superintendent then was Mr. James Hager. He received then a vehicle allowance monthly of $750. So, and I don't know if his successor, Mary Nebgen, a person I remember well, she's hard to forget. I don't know if she got that, but Mr. Hager back in '98 got it. $750 a month in 1998 ain't $800 a month now, but I don't know what just take that for what it's worth. The superintendent's attorney has also informed me that she, Tracy Davis, would agree to ask for mileage only for trips out of state with the car for school district business. And I thought, well, they should have thought about that one a little harder. The more, I presume you're going to fly to Las Vegas, but you might have to drive to Elko or Ely. And so, but she's told me that she would accept only the mileage for out-of-state driving. And it does not include fuel. I thought it did at first. It does not, I'm informed. So the district, Ms. Davis would have to buy her own gasoline. Okay, then there are, I've touched on the most significant ones, I think. There are other issues in here, but they're not as significant on the compensation. In regard to the non-monetary provisions of this contract, nothing to do with compensation. First of all, I considered it my job, among others, when I was negotiating this contract, to try to make sure as best I could that some of the mistakes of the past with regard to superintendent contracts were not made again. And I was one of the lawyers for the district on a special relationship along with Mr. Kent Robinson on the litigation of the Martinez matter. As everybody knows from all the reporting that's been done about that, that was a very expensive separation.
Oh, yes.
We didn't want to repeat that if we could help it, at least not most of it. And so that's been my goal, and I have to tell you, I haven't received any significant pushback or refusal to go along with these things from Ms. Davis's attorney. First of all, it provides, as did not the Martinez contract, and I don't know about the Morrison one before him. They both came from out of state primarily, were rewritten by the then chief counsel of the district, submitted to the board, and unfortunately there wasn't an adequate consideration of those, but hindsight, you learn those things. This contract provides, at the urging of Trustee Frankel, that it require a collaborative, cooperative relationship between the superintendent and the board. That's more important than it sounds with just words. That's a very key thing that she's expected in her duties and responsibilities to live up to all of the goals and objectives in the strategic plan and anything else that the board may direct. That's specifically written into this contract in a way that there's no way to get around it, and that's the way it should be. Secondly, and very importantly, this contract does not contain what is called by us lawyers as an evergreen clause. That was the thing that was so expensive in the Pedro Martinez separation. There was simply no good defense to his litigation. He had a damn good case, I'll say that. And Kent Robinson and I, we've been practicing a long time, we knew it. And so the board had to compromise that. There was no choice. And they did, but it was very expensive. This contract says, I'll just read it. It's different than Pedro Martinez's contract, believe me. And the superintendent, Ms. Davis, from the outset said she didn't even want an evergreen clause. Okay. Let's see. I have to find the right page, sorry. Page 10, paragraph 9, entitled Negotiation of a New Contract. Quote, this agreement shall not automatically renew upon its expiration, period. Rather, a new employment agreement may be negotiated by the parties at any time in the board's sole and unfettered discretion by giving Davis a minimum of 90 days written notice of intent to negotiate such a new contract. And similarly, she would have to give the board 90 days if she were intending to resign. The termination provisions of this contract say that it obviously terminates upon expiration of its temporal, meaning time term, as described herein or by her death. Those are obvious. It may also be voluntarily terminated by Davis upon a minimum of 90 days advance written notice. And finally, it may also be terminated involuntarily prior to expiration. The term expires on June 30th of 2018. I didn't mention that before. I'm sorry, I should have. It's not, it's 2.5 years from now. Finally, it may also be terminated involuntarily. That means being fired for laymen. Lawyers say involuntarily terminate. Prior to expiration of the term by the board at any time for any lawful reason or no reason with or without cause. And that word cause is defined later on, or for disability as defined below. That really amounts to what we lawyers also call an at-will employment clause. And that's presumed in Nevada law unless you contract it away, and the board has traditionally contracted it away. This one does not. The definition for cause is in here. I've added to that definition from what was in Mr. Martinez's contract. These are just the worst case scenario concepts that you try to prevent if you do proper lawyering, and I hope I've done it. The definition for cause is in here. It's expanded from what was in Pedro Martinez's contract, but no one expects that to happen. But it could, and that's why it's in here. In addition to that, there's more payout, there's higher payout if there is cause than if there's a termination without cause, for obvious reasons. If you're justified under the terms of the contract in firing somebody, then you shouldn't expect to get as much separation or severance pay or benefits. On the other hand, if you are terminated just because the board's tired of you as superintendent, or because they don't think you're measuring up in your performance, that's not cause, that's just bad performance. Then that's a termination without cause, and the payments would be higher. A year's pay, same as in Mr. Martinez's contract. But not all the benefits, as were stated in Mr. Martinez's contract. Very significant thing. Okay, then the other thing about the termination provision is, and again, unlike Mr. Martinez, is that Tracy Davis would be agreeing that she has no due process rights to contest the termination. That's extraordinary, actually. By that I mean an arbitration or some hearing before the board. Mr. Martinez's contract, incredibly in my opinion, provided, to the detriment of this board and the district and taxpayers, that he could have a hearing before anybody could terminate him. He had a right to a full hearing of the reasons for his termination before the board. Now that sounds fair in a way, but let me tell you, it's a real problem when it happens. What that would have meant is that Mr. Martinez could have come in here and said, here's why I disagree with why you say you're firing me, if we asserted there were cause. And he would have a right to present evidence, witnesses, just like in court. And he'd have his lawyer here. His lawyer would cross-examine all those witnesses. And then the chairman of the board, the president of the board, would have to rule on all the objections that we lawyers like to make in those kind of things. And that, I mean, that would have been a 3 or 4 day process, and it would have been unpleasant, to say the least. This contract says that the only remedy Tracy Davis has in the event of a termination, which is asserted to be with cause by the board, but is claimed to be without cause by her, would be to go to court and have a trial before a judge. She even waived a jury, and it also provides that there will be, in that decision by the court, if there is one that's unfavorable to the board, that there would be no tort or punitive damages awarded. Pedro's contract said he could go for it and get all the tort damages he could try to prove. So I think those are significant non-monetary things. I've finished this pretty much. There's a handout that I think has been put into the materials, which is a chart prepared by staff, I guess, of the district, showing what the differences are between the prior two contracts and this one that's proposed. So let me tell you, there are differences of opinion on this board. I've heard them all, and I respect them. And I especially respect strong opinions. And they're legitimate. So that's why we have a democratic system. You're all elected to make your best decision in the interest of the district. And I leave it to you, and this is what is the product of our negotiations, and maybe Ms. Morgan would have something to present if she wishes. Thank you.
Yes, please.
If you have any questions for me, maybe I shouldn't ask that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Why don't we see if there's any questions after she gets done for both of you?
Thank you, Mr. President, board members, members of the public. My name is Ann Morgan. It's my honor to represent Tracy Davis, the superintendent for the Washoe County School District. Ms. Davis was appointed the interim superintendent, as Mr. Malloy stated, back in October of 2014, more than a year ago. She has served for 11 months in that capacity, together with holding down the job duties of the deputy superintendent until the new deputy superintendent was appointed in September. And since July of 2015, she has worked for the Washoe County School District in good faith, without a contract, doing her very best to deliver for this district, its children, its parents, a good education, something that we can be proud of. She has done this because she is committed to the Washoe County School District and its mission. The agreement before the board reflects her sensitivity to this board's concerns from the predecessors. And that's why, as Mr. Malloy stated, she was sensitive to the board's concern about an evergreen clause. She was sensitive to the board's concern about the appellate process if, in the event, the superintendent needed to be terminated. And so she has agreed to no evergreen clause, and she agreed to that out of the box. And she has agreed to a very restrictive appellate process. Now, this was done because she is more concerned with the board and the Washoe County School District being confident in her performance. confident in her performance. She wants to be judged on her performance. I do have to change one thing that Mr. Malloy said, and that is the mileage is based on out of county, not out of state. The agreement before the board reflects Ms. Davis's willingness to start at the same starting salary as her male predecessor, $238,000. It also reflects her willingness to reduce the maximum longevity bonus that could be given to her by half in the first year, 2/3 in the second year. And finally, she's willing to be judged by her performance on the discretionary bonus, but she should not be penalized for a delay in getting this agreement to the board for its vote. This is an agreement that is fair to the district, the students, the parents, the public, and it is fair to Ms. Davis, and I urge that you vote in favor of it.
Thank you very much. Before I turn it over to the board, I have some public comment. We'll hear the public comment before we turn it over to the board. Remember, 3 minutes per speaker. Andrea C. Murray. Please identify yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Andrea C. Murray. I've been a resident of Washoe County all my life, and I won't tell you how long that is. When I opened the newspaper this morning, I was appalled at what I read. I was educated in the Washoe County system. My kids were educated, my parents were educated, and I have 6 grandchildren in the system right now. My main concern is for the children and in the school district and how they're taught. I have absolutely nothing against Miss Davis. From what I understand, she's a great administrator. However, I worked in the public sector, in the private sector for years, and when you refill a position, you don't just give that person the last guy's salary. That person has to be vetted. You have to look at their credentials, and you work a different contract with them. So referring back to what James got 10 years ago is not a viable thing. My husband was a salesman for years. He got mileage, or he got to drive his own car with a payment for it, or he got to drive a company car. Our school district right now is in dire need of funding. I think that we, as a city and a county and a group, really need to start paying attention to some fiscal responsibility. And I'm not Republican, believe me. I also think that when you're in the public sector, you almost are guaranteed to make less money than the private sector. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. I also think that altruism has a little to do with that. If I worked in the public sector, I would expect less money, but I would expect a lot more reward. I've been retired for 10 years. I am volunteering at the Humane Society, and in the last 10 years we have, I helped with the volunteer program. We went from 30 volunteers to a list of 7,000. All I urge you to do is be a little more fiscally responsible and not put all the money on the table up front. If Tracy does a great job in the next year or so, then certainly reward her. But don't give all these perks away before we even have a final viewing of what can and will be done. And that extra money that you don't pay Tracy, maybe we could put some new seating in the theater at Reed High School. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The next person is Zachary. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's fine.
So is it okay if I step ahead of Zachary?
Which one are you?
Aaron Solito. I think you would appreciate it if I left him.
Aaron what?
No.
What's the name?
Solito, Aaron Solito.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Zachary. I appreciate it. I'm a parent, and I woke up my baby to come here, and I just really feel like this is an important issue. We had 2 children who were struck by a car at a crosswalk about 6 weeks ago at our school. My children were nearly struck by a car about 2 months ago, within inches of being struck by a car. Oops, I'm sorry.
You leave it.
And every time I've spoken with the principal, who is great, we've had 2 principals, both of them are fabulous, they've said there's no money for crossing guards. In every state that I have lived in, there has always been paid crossing guards. If we cannot afford to get our children to school safely, how can we afford to give Miss Davis a car, mileage, back pay? It just doesn't make sense. You know, my husband worked in a high-level position at a university, and he was interim for a while too, but he felt grateful for a job, and he understood that he had to pay his dues to get to where he needed to be. I don't know, that's all I have to say. I think you need to be grateful for your job. And if she's not happy like the rest of us, we have a choice in our jobs. If we're not happy with the contracts that we sign, then we can say goodbye. And if that's what needs to happen, then that's what needs to happen. Because the children are already suffering because we don't have the funding necessary to make our system a good system here in the Washoe County. And my kids have been in other educational systems in the country, and we are suffering greatly compared to the national. And so I hate to say it so bluntly, but that's just really how I feel. And that's how other parents are feeling at the school that I've heard today as well. So just wanted to give my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Now to Zachary.
Thank you, Zach.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Zach Warbekis. I am a senior up at UNR currently. I have been in the Washoe County School District my entire life. I grew up here in Reno. I went to Roy Gaume Elementary School, continued my education on to Swope Middle School, then on to Reno High School, and now on to UNR. I'm currently a debate on the debate team as well, the Nevada debate team. I find education to be an extremely important thing and something that we definitely need. It seems that when I woke up and read the paper this morning, when I saw that big number of 480,000, I know we've reviewed and done some stuff to see that it's not exactly that substantial amount, but I do believe that the 238,000 that has been proposed, I think that is a viable and actual okay salary when it comes down to it, because I think that the benefits are what I have a concern with. It seems like it's more of a benefit for a job when you're seen as a leader for reform in our education system, and our education in K through 12 has had like the lowest test scores over the last 5 years, I believe. Also, our schools are so overcrowded. We have no room for these children as well. We have children that are learning in mobile homes that don't have air conditioning nor heaters. Therefore, they're not in a correct learning environment. As it was previously stated, it's supposed to be a safe environment when you are at a school. Therefore, these crossing guards, and like that point, I think that is absolutely important information, because we do need this. This money that I do believe that you deserve a great amount of money, and I think that what you do is extremely important. I think that at the education process, I think that the education system is the most vital thing to our success as a country, actually. But on that point, I think that it starts from the ground up. I think that we have to look at what we are spending our money on. Currently, right now, we have to look at, yes, you are brand new to our system, everything like that. I think that if you do progress and if you do a great job, that we should provide you with more money, and I think that is a fact. But when it comes down to it, sorry, I wrote a couple of things down. We're cutting other organizations such as art, drama, band. These organizations are being taken out of schools due to the fact of not being able to fund for them as well. And I believe that some of this money could be used towards the funding of these institutions, because I think that art is just as important as math. I think that drama, band, I think that these are all important, vital things that should be exercised throughout an educational experience. Therefore, I do believe that this money should then be this money should be used for the educational purposes. I think that I think that the overcrowding of schools and with not enough teachers, there are children that are getting underdeveloped education, and therefore they will be given a lower hand in society when trying to further their education. When it comes to terms of value in education with these kids, am I done? Oh, sorry.
Finish your sentence.
I was just going to say, when it comes to terms of education, these kids are going to have a lower hand because they're going to be undereducated to the point to where that people are more educated are going to receive scholarships for college. They're going to receive these types of items. They're going to be able to further their education. You are just taking these kids, you're belittling them, and you're making so that their futures are outsourced and not having a good outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next is Thomas Linus.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak and address the board. I'm a radiologist who's retired from full-time medical practice in Indiana. My wife and I have owned a condominium here since 2007, retired here full-time 3 years ago, and we love Reno. We're passionate about it. We think it's the best-kept secret in the United States. We really do. And when I opened the paper today, I was a little bit, and by the way, as part of a little additional background, I served for 12 years as a school board member back in my hometown in Indiana at one point in time. And I was honestly a little concerned when I saw the article in the paper this morning. And yeah, I mean, it's a huge difference to go from Tracy Davis, from a salary of $238,000, which was what Dr. Martinez made in his last, is the last superintendent, to $428,800. And I just feel that the request for that up front is a little disproportionate, just a little bit alarming to me. Basically, it looks as though, it looks like the school board and other personnel have looked into appropriate salaries commensurate with the size of Reno's Washoe County School District. And from what I see in the newspaper, it looks like the figure of $238,000 is an average salary right in the middle of school board size, you know, school boards or school districts this size. And as Mrs. Murray said a few minutes ago when she was addressing the board, if Dr. Davis, and if she does a wonderful job, and if she's able to increase the current standards of our students, which, as I understand it, are quite low from everything I read in the newspaper, if she can have an uplifting effect on that, a real positive, resulting in a real positive improvement in our school district, then I say take all the money that she's asking at this point in time, and I'd be more than happy to give it to her on the basis of positive performance. But I would just have to speak out against doing it up front at this point in time. That's all.
Thank you very much for your comments. That's all the comment cards I have.
I am kind of trying to scroll down. We're a little late. May I?
You can fill it out.
I'll fill it out. It's snowing.
If you could, please introduce yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Cleo Straight, and reading the paper this morning, I was quite shocked to see that our current superintendent wants a base pay of more than our President of the United States. I understand that superintendent does not care to use the cars that other superintendents have used. She wants to use her own car with the money for that. And I'm sorry, I'm not really prepared. And also get mileage. It seems that we should really be putting our emphasis of our monies onto the students. Right now, our students are lacking in education. They're not lacking in sports equipment. I happen to live in the Reed High School district, and the girls used to walk a half a block to play softball. But a couple years ago, they got their own softball diamond with bleachers and lights. The boys then had to get a brand new baseball diamond because the girls did. I don't know why, but they got it. We really need to put more emphasis and our monies on education and not salaries, air conditioning, ballparks, etc. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much for your comments. Please fill out that card and give it to one of the people. Any other person in here would like to make comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll turn it back over to the board for any questions, comments, or concerns. Yes, go ahead. Mr. Smith.
Okay. My only comment really is that until Friday, I thought that there were some trustees that knew some of my concerns with the contract. And really, Tracy and I, at the advice of Mr. Malloy, I called Tracy and discussed my concerns directly with Tracy on a few things that were of the most importance to me. And oddly enough, those are the ones that the RGJ picked up on, and that's the retroactive pay and the vehicle. And we talked at length about that and agreed to disagree and said that we could just talk about it at the board meeting. And so those are the two items that I'm most concerned with. I think that the important thing to realize is this contract, while it's not perfect, it's a step towards the right direction. I definitely agree that the pay is commensurate with her experience because she is doing a great job in that role. But it's just those two issues that for me were difficult. It's unfortunate sometimes when you speak to a newspaper reporter that the whole story doesn't always get presented. Because if it did, and the editorial was written correctly, and I say editorial because he editorialized as opposed to report, he may have written that I also said from the onset that Ms. Davis was willing to offer considerations to her contract that decreased the value of the contract that the other two superintendents before her had right out of the gate, and that was without the trustees asking for that. And not just monetary, but also in the so-called evergreen clause. But that didn't make it. All that really made it was that I don't agree with the vehicle, and that's no surprise. Tracy and I have talked about that. So those are the two issues that I really have. I would be happy today to support this contract if we can clean up some of the language and some of the ask around the vehicle and mileage, and if we could address the back pay. I understand Ms. Davis' concern that she was doing essentially two jobs for that period of time. But however, a previous board made a decision, and whether there were, I don't believe that there was a contract written, but there didn't seem to be much argument and disagreement in the $3,000 a month that they were willing to pay for her to take on those additional responsibilities. And I think that's where our liability stops. I can't change the actions of a previous board, but I'm not comfortable approving the contract paying back from October 28th through July 9th. However, I think it's totally appropriate because we did appoint Tracy on July 10th to this role, and contracts have to be negotiated. This one took probably more time than some, but it's got to be hard for the attorneys when you're dealing with 7 trustees and 1 superintendent. You know, there's 8 minds that all have to come together and make some sort of a consensus. I'm glad I wasn't him, or Ann for that matter. So those are really my 2 things. I'm comfortable with the contract. I'm comfortable with the salary. That was actually reported correctly. Thank you, Trevin. But I'm not comfortable with going back. And as we talked about, you know, Tracy said, you know, if it's an issue for you and you still feel strongly about it, we could talk about it at the board meeting. So here I am. Those are the 2 issues of contention. But I found out on Friday that not everybody maybe knew, some of the trustees, that these were issues for me with the contract because people were traveling or whatever the reason may be. Our legal counsel wasn't able to convey these issues to all of you for whatever reason. So those are my comments. I would like to see us just work on that and see how we can do, draft that contract to be a little better. I apologize that I don't agree with the money in the back pay from October 28th to July 9th, but you're not going to get me to change my mind. I just don't agree with that. I just don't think that's the right thing for us to do. I think that we compensated, and there should have been a claim back in October of 2014 if there was some disagreement there, and that doesn't seem that it was addressed. And if it was, certainly it wasn't done in a public meeting because there's nothing in any meeting notes that indicate that that was ever brought up to the board again. So if we could not pay the money from October 28th to July 9th to equal up to that $238,000 and clean up some language as in, what I propose, if you want to use your own vehicle, I really still have some reservations about that, but it's either you use your vehicle and receive $800 a month stipend and no mileage reimbursement even out of county, or use a district vehicle, and I don't care if you drive it to Nashville, Tennessee, I'll pay all the expenses related with using that district vehicle. So those are the two things that I would like to see changed. And that's really it. I can lend my support to everything else, and I really do appreciate Ms. Davis, being so generous in some of the things right out of the gate. It actually wasn't that hard to negotiate a lot of these things. I just think that there wasn't enough meeting of the minds because of travel schedules or whatever reason that some of the trustees couldn't know what some of the issues were. So that's it.
Okay, anybody else? Mr. Rosenberg.
Salaries are, at best, difficult. Back salaries cause grief. But if you've done the work, then you should be compensated for it. It's as simple as that. Insofar as waiting to see what she does, she's auditioned for a year. And she's auditioned for 2 years before that. Our graduation rates have improved. The morale in the district has improved 9 billion%. All you need to do is talk to the teachers. My other question would be, who's here from the newspaper? He's what? How nice. He should have been here. There's always things that can be misunderstood. In any case, I am quite happy with this contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenberg. Ms. Frankel.
Thank you, President Mayor, and I'll apologize in advance for not having much voice at all. I've been quite sick with bronchitis, so I'm going to try to get through this. A little closer? Okay. Because you can't hear me. That's so unusual. I don't have to strain so much. This is a really challenging moment, and I have to say that as someone who has done a lot of work on team decision making, I have to say that this is one of those moments where our structure and our process for communication as a governing body really makes it challenging to do things like this. Like our attorney aptly said, it's difficult to require lots of conversations with very different people with very different minds, and not the opportunity for any of us to really talk to one another like we are today. So I think that in and of itself is part of the challenge that Trustee Smith was referring to in terms of not necessarily knowing where each other is. So I'm glad we're here today having that dialogue. As I look at this question and I look at this situation, there's a lot of emotion clearly that we've heard today. We've all received emails today that we saw in the paper. I received since last week, not even just because of the newspaper article this morning, but received a number of pieces of communication about this whole issue and the contract. And there's a lot of factors that I consider as I'm looking at this question of this contract. And, first and foremost, and I know I actually end up sounding fairly conservative in this perspective, but I start with my responsibility fiscally and just looking at it very carefully and stepping back from the personal, from the individual, and from actually who's in the position, but looking at the district and its fiscal responsibility and creating a contract that protects the district, not just now and today, but going forward for the next few years. I know that there's a temptation and to look at the other issue, and I look at it too, the issue of parity and comparison and comparing this contract to the contracts preceding it and looking at a lot of factors. And I mean, that's what the chart does. It compares this contract to the previous two contracts. And I think the challenge for me there has to do with the fact that if I view those initial contracts, the two that are being compared, and I look at it, I think if I had been on the board then, I might have said that some of those parameters were very rich and not necessarily in the interest of the district, as our own attorney said with respect to some of the provisions in it. So I think making a comparison and trying to achieve parity with something that might already be flawed is also extremely challenging. Speaking of parity, part of what I also think about is the broader parity in the district. And some of the other challenges that we face as a board and decisions we have to make with relation to paying our teachers and paying our principals and paying our staff. So I think about parity broadly in that sense as well. And I also, in terms of the back pay, and I'm going to speak to this as well. I share Trustee Smith's perspective as an HR professional who has worked for many, many years, a couple decades in the public sector. My experience has been that when someone assumes an interim position, they automatically assume new duties, and most of the time are compensated, as was in this case, an adjustment in their salary to compensate for the increased duties while still performing their previous duties. I think the challenge for me is viewing this employment contract as starting last October for two reasons, both the back pay and that consideration, but also the impact it has on the longevity bonus and the timing of that bonus and when that would occur. So from my perspective, I feel more comfortable viewing the start of her performance or the superintendent's performance as the day we appointed her on July 10th as well. And that would in turn impact those two provisions because the longevity bonus would occur a year after or somewhere the year following appointment to the position. So those are my two concerns. I'm less concerned. I mean, there's a lot of other numbers that I could look at, but of the entire contract, the vast majority I'm comfortable with. And I do also appreciate the willingness to negotiate and how hard that process is. And this is, of course, not in any way, for me, it's not about, as usual, the individual in the position, but looking at the contract objectively as possible, removing from the equation in my head, the person in the position and the individual in the position, but more from the standpoint of my responsibility to the district, to the citizens, and to the people who have communicated with me many, many times over the last 5 days. So I just wanted to share those perspectives.
Lisa? Okay. Just a second. Barbara, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It's been
you.
a very rich discussion this evening, and I appreciate listening to all perspectives from all members of the board. I, at this time, would like to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead and make the motion.
That pursuant to Nevada Revised Statute, NRS 391.110, the Board of Trustees approves the written employment agreement, Superintendent of Schools, between Superintendent Tracy M. Davis and the Board of Trustees on behalf of the Washoe County School District, and under which Ms. Davis would serve as Superintendent for the Washoe County School District.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Rosenberg, and we'll have discussion. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, President Mayor, and I too appreciate the rich dialogue, and I'm one of those that I think it's okay to disagree, as long as you disagree respectfully and appropriately. I think it's important to know the few things. One is that it's really important for everyone to know that the numbers that are currently in the public are inaccurate. Not only are they inaccurate, they are egregiously inaccurate. And unfortunately, that has framed a lot of the conversation that we've had today. And unfortunately, that has framed a lot of the feedback that many of us have received since that article. Maybe we got some beforehand, but that has absolutely framed a lot of the dialogue that's happened. Even after Mr. Malloy got up and clarified that still framed a lot of the commentary that came afterwards. That is not the number. It's important for us to note that. I think it's secondly important for us to note that the number, as is indicated in the article that was referred to in so many times today, the number from the base salary standpoint is absolutely competitive in the educational market, not the corporate world, because the corporate world, if you are overseeing a budget of $500 million, when you have 8,000 employees that you're responsible for, you're going to make a whole lot more than $238,000. So that is not the goal to be competitive in what's in the corporate world. I've been in both. And so I'm very much aware of that. It is competitive in the educational marketplace. I think it's thirdly importantly to note that this contract represents a savings of over $50,000 over the previous two contracts. Because I would absolutely agree with my colleague, Veronica Franco, I'm going to say Victoria because someone called you Victoria to me one day. Veronica Franco, that there were some things that certainly needed to be redone, reconsidered. There were some issues with the previous contracts, as Mr. Malloy pointed out, and we ran into some of those, the board ran into some of those about a year ago. And so I think it is important to note that this is not that. This is a very different contract than those from before. And I think fourthly, it's important to note that this is actually also in contradiction or in opposition to the previous contracts. This contract legally favors the Board of Trustees and the Washoe County School District that we did not have as well. I think those are four very, very, very important points. So in my opinion, the narrative this really should be that the board is cutting this expenditure by over $50,000. That's what the narrative should be. That should be framing our conversation. The narrative should be about that legally we made adjustments, that adjustments were made, and that that concessions were given to favor the district, to favor the students, to favor the community, to favor the board for greater protection if in the event something does go wrong. Because as you said, it is absolutely not about an individual person. I think the narrative should be about that it's important for us to stay competitive in the marketplace, not above, not beyond. And that was one of the things that I actually lent favor to the number that we ended up to as narrated in the paper. I think it's also important, the narrative should also be about how Ms. Davis has voluntarily made some concessions from the very beginning on some really things that could have been some tremendous sticking points, I think, for the board as well as for the community. And I think the fifth thing that is important to note is that the number one factor impacting student achievement is the superintendent. We didn't ask for that research. We didn't pay for the research. The research is out there well before us, well beyond. The number one factor impacting student achievement is the superintendent. So one of the best things that we can do for the students is to keep a solid relationship with the student, with the superintendent, someone well qualified and that is fairly compensated. I think it's one of the best things we can do for the district, in fact, is to move forward with this contract.
Thank you very much. I want to say a few things because I think this contract shows what kind of person Tracy Davis is. It shows us the type of person that we need. She didn't come in here like our two previous superintendents and say they needed a contract that every year they completed, they added another to the term. They didn't come in with wanting hearings and judges and all that if they were terminated. Her contract is not an evergreen contract. She didn't want a golden parachute like so many of the rest. Oh man, if I don't do well, I just can leave with all this money. She's looking after what's good for Washoe County. She's a Nevadan. She's put her heart and soul into the education in Nevada. She worked her way through college. She got some of the toughest positions ever. And I've talked to people from Las Vegas. Some of the schools that she volunteered to take over as a principal were down at the bottom, and she got them up to be one of the leading schools in Clark County. She was great as an area superintendent in Las Vegas, and since she's been here, she's been wonderful. She's a role model for girls. This is going to be a girl-oriented model superintendent. This lady always looks nice. She always presents herself well with our students. She goes down to Sparks High, and she talks to those kids that I know personally with their arm around them. How you doing, honey? What's happening? You got tutoring? I'll get you tutoring. She goes over to Reed High School, takes some of the tough characters that are in the schools and takes a little group and shows compassion for those kids, and they feel like somebody cares. and that's what it's all about. And I think this is a great contract. There's things in there. First of all, she isn't starting at what Pedro left. His was 250,000. You know, some of the figures that they have in the paper just are not true figures. I don't know who they talked to get those figures, but they just are not true figures. And that's all I have to say. Any other comments? Seeing none, there is a motion. Barbara, are you still there?
Mr.
Oh, excuse me.
I'd like to, I think there's a little clarification.
Mike, turn your microphone
I
on.
apologize, I'm sorry. I should know better. Okay. There's a very minor issue before I suggest we vote on the motion, as made by Trustee McClory and seconded by Trustee Rosenberg. Sorry, you're the guy over here. The motion, as I understood it, would be to approve the contract as written. And there's a minor issue hanging out there somewhat, perhaps, and it's very minor, and that's this mileage issue. As pointed out by Mr. Rombardo to me, that may not be clear in the motion, whether she, Mr. McClory, meant to say, as discussed by me from the podium, involving the out-of-county mileage, or if she just wants it to be as it's written now, that doesn't say that. So I don't know if some clarification. Barbara McClory, can you hear what I just said, and do you have any clarification on that?
Yes, I can, and you know, I'm amenable to doing whatever is the correct thing to do here. I was reading the motion from the paperwork that I have here in my home, and I had expected that the paperwork that I was working with would have been perfectly up to date. So however that wants to work out, Howard, you can look at a friendly amendment, or however we need to do this. I'm amenable to either way.
Would you be amenable to changing the motion before it's voted upon to be the out-of-county mileage only?
Yes, if that is fair and just, then I'm amenable to that.
And Mr. Rosenberg, are you? All right, I think we have a clear motion now.
Is that all right? Okay. I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
We'll have a roll call vote. Dr. McClory?
Aye.
Trustee Rosenberg?
Aye.
Trustee Frankel? No. No. Trustee Lisa Ruggiero?
Aye.
Trustee Smith?
No.
Trustee Smith, no. Dr. Taylor?
Aye, yes.
And the chair votes aye, so that's 5-2. The motion passes. And you know, I see the Reno High kids are in the starting block. They want to get out, so we're going to have a call for a 15-minute recess. We'll call the meeting back to order. We're moving on to 4.02, discussion by the board and possible action regarding dates and times, potential costs, and the facilitator for training of the board regarding the legal requirements and best practices to ensure full compliance with the Nevada open meeting law. And this is Veronica and David.
Thank you, President Mayor. I'll start us off, but I'm not going to talk a lot. I think I'll leave a lot of the talking to David. This, as you all know, we've been, Trustee Taylor, Vice President Taylor, and I have been doing some work on board development opportunities for us to continue to work toward being the highest functioning board we can possibly be. And a lot of that was, we started with the workshop last month, and we'll continue with the item that follows this one. But this conversation today is about, for us to make some decisions about the date of the trainer for the open meeting law training, for us to discuss who we'd like to help us by providing that training, to help us be as informed as possible about the important law, important and complex law. So I'm going to turn it over to David because he's going to talk about some options that we have for the trainers, and we're going to hear a little bit about both of them, and then we'll have an opportunity to discuss the date as well. So David, take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, President, Mayor, Superintendent Davis, and members of the board. Chief of Staff David Lasik, for the record. As Trustee Frankel said, this agenda item is primarily for your professional development. You had expressed an interest in open meeting law training. And so this agenda item is really to talk about when. So get your calendars out so we can set a date for you. Who and if there are any potential costs. So essentially we have three choices as to who could facilitate that training for you. And I'll just go through them and not in any particular order or endorsement, and just realizing that it's your decision and not our staff decision, and we are just here to facilitate and do what you would like. So the first one is Charla Hales, and she has presented at the Nevada Association of School Boards several times, and she is legal counsel to Churchill County School District currently. She does many presentations on open meeting law training to school boards and at the Nevada Association of School Boards. She, in her tenure, was a Douglas County School District school board member for 12 years. So she served a full 12-year term in Douglas County, and now she's legal counsel to Churchill. So she comes highly recommended from Dottie Merrill of the Nevada Association of School Boards. The second option, I will kind of turn this over, well, option number two, of course, is our own in-house counsel, general counsel, and he has extensive knowledge on open meeting law training, Neil Rombardo, and that's one of the reasons he was hired, to help us wrangle our open meeting law training and with staff and so on. And then our third option is Randall Munn, and I will actually turn it over to Neil to discuss his qualifications.
Great, thanks, David. So Randy, I don't have his resume, but he was a 25-year public lawyer, worked for Frankie Sue for 12 years, worked for Brian Sandoval, worked for George Chanos, worked for Catherine Masto. He worked his way all the way up to assistant AG for now Governor Sandoval, for Attorney General Sandoval. He was also the assistant AG for Catherine, and he worked for me when I was DA for 5 years. He has taught open meeting law probably a dozen times, if not more, and he's willing to come do this pro bono. So.
And I will just say options 2 and 3, so Neil and Randy, are free, no cost to the district, and Charla does come with a cost, so that is something for you to consider. Her cost would be approximately $800 that you would have to approve. And so with that, we're kind of looking for dates, again, who you want, and go from there.
That's fine.
A motion by Dr. Taylor.
Let me get my cheat sheet out. I move that the Board of Trustees direct staff to organize training for the board regarding requirements and best practices for full compliance with the Nevada open meeting law, including the date and time, and as well as a facilitator for training as we determine at this board.
Who are you?
Okay, should I can amend that for recommended trainer if that would be appropriate? You don't mind, yes? Okay, so let me amend that before it's even seconded, that we go with, I don't remember his name, so let's go with the free guy from the AG's office.
Randall Munn.
Yeah, him. Let's go with Mr. Munn if I make the, so let me clean this up then. I move that the Board of Trustees direct staff to organize the training regarding the requirements and best practices for full compliance with the Nevada open meeting law, including the training date, and the potential cost, which would be none, and name as the facilitator for the training, Mr. Mund.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to oppose that. I think our own in-house. It'd be a way to get to know him a little better. So it's 4-1.
Okay. Yeah, they can. I'm sure.
It
I'm
passes
assuming you'll be
4-1.
Before we move on, I would just ask for a date,
The date.
Okay.
They want us to look at our calendars now.
All right.
since it's
Smart
quite,
man.
it's,
We need Nick too, though, because we can do all the selection. He's doing an interview.
or we
We can do
can
it.
talk about it later, I guess, after the holidays.
Do you have an idea of when you want
It would be in January, so.
ASAP?
So I would just say.
January.
I would just say the sooner we can get the date, the better off we are, because we have many activities coming up in January with just things are on the board of trustees' calendars, and trying to get all your calendars to jive. The sooner we can get it on, and people will know they can ensure that they can be here for this very necessary training for all of us.
I think we tried for 2 December dates and it didn't work, but if we are open to other December dates, we're certainly open to that as well.
I'm fine if December works.
Name a date.
I'm fine with the December. That week in December is very good for me, but I don't.
What week?
The week of December 14th was, I think, originally the week we were looking at a couple of dates, but there were a couple that didn't work, you said.
We couldn't get consensus on the 16th or 17th.
What about the 19th? It's a Saturday.
Well,
That's
that's a very bad
Holiday
day
break,
because
yeah.
it starts the Christmas vacation.
My name is Roseburg. It's
um,
in the middle of Hanukkah.
2 hours. The 14th? What about December 14th, Monday?
Monday, December 14th.
I can't make it.
We have a spotlight on success on Tuesday, December 15th. What would it be like for us to come here and have the training? Do we have a-
No, we do not.
You don't. Fine with me.
That works.
The 15th. Okay.
Before the spotlight, like 1 to 3 or whatever, then we can go over the spotlight.
1 to 3.
Which one? 14th?
December 15th, Tuesday, December 15th?
We have a spotlight that day?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's on my calendar.
Reed High School.
5 o'clock.
We do 2 to 4.
Oh, you're gonna have one on the side? I'll just kidding.
Is there a motion for that?
There's no student advisory board that day? No?
Motion for the date?
I-
No, you don't technically, but if you want to do one, it's fine too.
I don't know. We need one. Let's just.
Okay.
December 14th, or 15th, sorry.
That afternoon, based on however much time he
Yeah,
needs. Okay.
more
we'll
like
just
1 to
block it.
3 or 2 to 4, we'll figure something out.
We'll just block it.
Whoa, what day is that?
December 14th, or 15th, sorry, Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay, just making sure, because I'm supposed to present at state board on our behalf, so we're good, right?
15th.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
At what
Thank you.
time?
Just block the afternoon. We aren't sure.
Yeah, we're
how
either
much
1 to
time
3
we
or
need
2 to
yet.
4, it just depends on what we can get.
I can't make it on the 15th or 16th. But that's okay. Go ahead.
No, we can. No. We all need to be at this training.
Okay, well, I guess you need to send some dates out.
No, let's just. Maybe we can't do December, so let's jump into January if that's the case.
I don't know how to work this back part
I was gonna come and visit you.
How about Monday, January 11th? Is that a holiday?
Nope,
Okay.
that's a great day.
It's a holiday?
No, it's a great day.
Oh, January 11th, Monday.
Should be okay for me.
Looks okay for me.
Start school until.
Everybody good?
What night you're good again? Monday, January 11th.
Monday, January 11th in the afternoon.
It's all right.
I'm good. Okay. All right.
Okay. We just need to move a few things on my calendar right now.
Okay.
Or if the morning's better, whatever works better.
Yeah.
We're looking at dates.
We're looking for dates for the open meeting
We'll
law
just
training.
adjust the calendar.
The
I mean,
afternoon
I'll-
of Monday, the 11th of January.
Like what time after?
We don't know what.
Okay,
block it.
that does it, right?
We don't,
Okay.
I don't know if they need 3 hours, 4 hours, 2 hours. I don't know. Okay, wait. Nick can't make it that day.
I don't know if I should pull that off. Like what time in the afternoon?
Is morning better?
No, morning's worse. But if we could do like
1 to 3.
Later today better?
yes, like I gotta pick up my kids. I'm just being honest, because Mondays is daddy day, right? Not always trustee day. So I'm just thinking maybe like maybe 1 to 3, I might be able to pull that off.
No, this is open meeting law training. We have to be there, so we can't have that. Oh, geez, my key.
Excuse me, may I make a suggestion that we just have the chief of staff coordinate with all of you and figure it out in individual emails so there's no serial communications of any kind? And
Well, he was looking for our help. He's been trying to do that with no success.
oh, does that not work for you, David? Or that
That's
does not
not
work.
work.
I apologize.
That's how
Never
we got
mind.
here.
Bad suggestion.
Okay.
Well, why don't we just schedule?
We've had a couple. Because he may not be able to make it. He's saying he may not be able to make it.
1 to 3 is perfect. I can get here pretty quick, and then I just got to pick up the kids by. Well, I don't know what time the new school gets out. What time Spanish Springs get out? Anybody know? I don't know. We'll figure it out.
We'll make it work.
How about, are you okay with Thursday,
Thursday.
the
1
14th?
Thursday, 1 to 3. That would probably work too.
January.
I won't be here on the 14th of January.
Let's do it on the 11th,
Sorry.
and we'll send someone to pick up your children in a tank.
Well, that'd be fun.
How about the 13th?
Can you do it on the 11th one?
I have the teacher leaders council meeting.
Okay.
What about the next week?
The 20th?
He said he can do Tuesday, the 11th, so let's just stay with the, he said he could do it from 1 to 3.
That's not Tuesday, that's
I mean, Monday the 11th.
Let's go with that.
Let's go with that.
I'm already good with that, or Tuesdays, opposite of the board meeting as well.
Okay.
Monday it is. Put it in.
Okay.
Get it out. Okay. Takes care of that one.
We don't have to amend the motion, so.
No, we already passed the
All right.
motion.
4.03, discussion by the board and possible action regarding professional development for the Board of Trustees, including consideration of the scope of work and cost for Dr. Thomas L. Ellsbury to facilitate a work session meeting of the board in early 2016 related to board governance for possible action. Angie and Veronica.
I'll take it for your, this is just, as you may recall, colleagues, that this will be a follow-up to the session we had with Dr. Ellsbury. I believe it was 6 weeks or so ago, and we agreed that we wanted him to continue to work with the board. And if you'll see in the handout, on the last page, he made several recommendations as to next steps that we could have. He didn't necessarily put them in order. Some of them happened kind of independently. And so in conversation with Veronica and myself, and just talking with Dr. Ellsbury, our recommendation for the board is to go with option 3. Taking the assessment for just individual characteristics that lead to our being a stronger governing body. So there will be the assessment cost, as you can see there, and then his usual face-to-face per day cost is $4,500. So again, it will be a one-day training similar to that which we had before. Can I answer questions or anything from anyone?
What time would we be looking at?
We haven't even set a date yet.
Okay.
That we will do via email because we haven't even tried that. We haven't even had that conversation yet. So we haven't done any of that work yet. This is just about having the training, and then we'll do the work to set up the appropriate date and time.
I think option 3 is good. I enjoyed the meeting we had with him last time and the training he provided. I think there was some value, although I didn't agree with everything, but there was enough value. I think that we should continue it, and I think that the individual school board member stabilizing characteristics is probably a good one. I'm sure that you and Veronica talked about all the different options with him at length.
Is that a motion?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just making a statement that I agree. I'd like to hear if anybody else.
I'm just going to weigh in a little bit just to make a comment as well. And I think one of the ways we can look at this is sort of the next step that really follows, as Angie said, the last session, and actually sort of moves us to what I call in my training the now what. Sort of how do we use it for ourselves, and how do we look at ourselves using some of the information that he shared with us at the last workshop. And my understanding is that the training day that's associated with option 3 is another day-long session, similar
Yes.
to what we had before. So I wanted to clarify that too.
Is there a motion?
I'm happy to make this one as well. I move that the Board of Trustees accept the proposed scope of work, option number 3, individual school board members stabilizing characteristics training for Dr. Thomas L. Ellsbury to conduct and facilitate professional development for the board and training related to board governance at a work session, meeting of the board to be held in early 2016 at a cost not to exceed $13,000. His cost will be $7,500 plus his expenses, travel expenses.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same signal. So carried. Let the record show unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll go on to 4.04, what I wait for all year. Presentation by staff, discussion by the board, and possible action to accept the comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR, for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2015, for possible action. Tom and Gail and
me.
Nope, and
President Mayor, Superintendent Davis, and members of the board. For the record, Tom Szynski, Chief Financial Officer. And in a moment, I'll introduce my co-presenters because I got it further down on my little opening here. So I'm very pleased today to present our comprehensive annual financial report or annual audit for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2015. This 228-page report reflects a complete look at our finances this last fiscal year with excellent results. So our 228-page financial report, which you received, each board member received an electronic copy, and if you haven't picked up one already, you can pick up the hardbound copy from JJ. I'd like to thank the board, the superintendent, and for your leadership in the outstanding results of this process. And I'd also like to thank our schools and our departments for their great work as well. I'd now like to introduce Felicia O'Carroll, who is the managing partner on this engagement for us from Eide Bailey, as well as our controller, Gail Carson, who will go through the finer details. So I'm being very careful not to steal their thunder. But I do want to take just a moment to thank Gail and Cindy Vance, our accounting manager, Cindy Wave, for the outstanding work on the audit, and all of our financial team, because this takes a real effort. It doesn't happen in a day, it doesn't happen in a week. It takes the entire fiscal year working with everybody to make this happen. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Felicia and her audit team for their great work on this process. I mean, they're an independent auditor, they're an external auditor, but their team is wonderful to work with, and we have a good working relationship with our external auditor. And with that, I'll turn it over to Felicia, and then she'll turn it over to Gail to walk you through this 228-page report. The good news is we're not going through every page.
Yeah. Actually, Gail is distributing just a quick executive summary, and that's what I'll be speaking from. There are the page numbers referenced in there that tie back to this 220-page document, if you're ever interested in looking at it. And thank you, Tom, President, Mayor, Superintendent Davis, members of the board. Thank you for having us. It is required by Nevada revised statutes that certain items in your financial statements be read into the minutes, and that's why we're here today, is to take care of that for you. First and foremost, you did receive an unmodified opinion. That is the highest level of assurance that the CPA profession offers. So you do always hope that you get an unmodified opinion, and this year you did. There is a little change from prior years. There is what's called an emphasis of matter paragraph. That's a specific paragraph that talks about a new accounting standard that was implemented this year. It's going to be referred to as GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, number 68. It made a tremendous difference in your financial statements this year. But as Tom pointed out, if you're not really interested in looking at 228 pages of numbers, I would direct your attention to management's discussion and analysis. That was put together by your finance people, primarily by Gail Carson. It's an easy-to-read description of the year's financial activities. Most important thing on page 22 is this is your net position. And net position is the difference between your assets, which are what you own, and your liabilities, which is what you owe on June 30th.
You'll see your net investment in capital assets, which include your buildings, your schools, your buses. That was $274 million. That's an increase of 11 million over last year. You'll see your restricted net position was 36 million. That's down 11 million from the prior year. And the reason for that is because you actually spent some of the restricted funds that you had. So that's one time when it's good to have something decrease. The primary areas of restricted net position are capital projects and self-insurance activities. The next item is the one that's the most unusual. It shows that your unrestricted net position is a deficit of $561 million. Yes, you heard me right. It's a deficit of $561 million. The reason for this huge swing, because last year it was a positive $79 million. So this big swing is the result of GASB 68 being implemented during the current year. That standard requires Washoe County School District and every other local and state government across the United States to record their proportionate share of the unfunded PERS liability. And that was as of June 30th. It's reported in your 2015 financial statements. PERS is actually issuing information 1 year in arrears, so it's actually the balance as of 2014. This is the biggest change to hit governmental accounting in several decades. But it's a little bit misleading presentation because you report, and we reported a $580 million liability on your books, and that's your proportionate share of the $10 billion liability that PERS has as of 2014. But you don't get to report the revenue that you're going to collect over the next 30 years that you will use to help make your PERS contributions, which is what will eventually pay down that liability. So under governmental accounting, you report the liability, but you don't get to record the asset of receivables over the next 30 years. So it's not like they're going to come with their hand out and say, okay, pay me my $580 million. That's not going to happen. But they just want everybody to understand that there is a big unfunded liability out there. It's kind of an unusual situation because our statutes actually say that this liability does not accrue to the individual governments. However, that's what the statute says. This is the financial reporting requirements. So GASB thinks they trump our statutes. I'm not sure that's true, but they think they do. So this isn't new. This has always been there. It just has never been quantified and taken down to the level of the individual local governments before. And unfortunately, it hits school districts particularly hard because you're so labor intensive. And the amount that you pay in PERS contributions is so much greater than most of the other local governments. And that's because of your teachers and how you operate. So anyway, I want to bring that to your attention. And it is important, but it's also not the way you run your school district. You run your school district based on your funds and what money you have in your funds and what happens on a day-to-day basis. So let's take a little look at that and see where we ended despite this big new change. Your governmental fund balance decreased by 21 million, and your governmental fund balance includes everything except your insurance funds and your nutrition services fund. And the majority of this decrease was a result of spending bond proceeds to upgrade your schools. So again, it's a good thing. Your internal service funds, which are your insurance funds, net position decreased by 11 million before GASB 68. And that's primarily in the health insurance fund and the nutrition services fund actually increased by 373,000. Also included in this 228 pages are your notes to the financial statements. Notes to the financial statements are required for full disclosure. You'll see information in there about Note 2, which talks about one very good thing. While we were doing the audit, we did not come across or become aware of any potential statute violations or violations of the Nevada Administrative Code. It's not very often that we get to say that, but the school district is typically in that position. and again, they were this year. You'll find details of your cash balances. You hold $277 million in cash and investments. 6.6 of that is held either for the schools, in the school activity funds, or in your other post-employment benefits trust fund. And then note 7 provides information on your fund balances. And if you remember, your fund balances are classified into amounts that are non-spendable. That would include amounts that are held in things that are not in spendable form. That would include your inventory in your general fund. And it's not spendable because you've already spent it and converted it into an asset. Your restricted amounts are amounts that are restricted by outside parties or legislation. Your bond covenants, bond use restrictions, and union contracts make up the majority of this category. We mainly see this in the debt service and capital projects fund, with a smaller amount held in the special revenue funds for your wellness program and through gifts and donations. You also have a chunk of money sitting in what's called committed fund balance. Those are amounts that can only be used for specific purposes, and the amounts are committed by actions of this board and can only be rescinded or changed by similar actions of this board. And those are primarily the amounts in your Medicaid fund and your E-rate fund. Then your assigned fund balance are amounts that the district intends to use for a specific purpose. And this is just an intention. You can change this if you want. But the authority to assign fund balance has actually been delegated to the superintendent and/or the finance director. And the entire general fund remaining fund balance has been assigned because you have lots of projects out there on the drawing board that you're going to use that money for. And that also includes amounts in other funds that end up being in the negative. And you have a couple of those this year in your special revenue funds, and that's primarily your grant funds. When you end up, those operate on a zero net fund balance basis, but occasionally you'll end up in a deficit position on those. You'll also find information in this financial statement on those pension plan disclosures that I talked to you about. There's a 5-page note, note 8, that talks about those disclosures. And then note 9 talks about your post-employment health care benefits, OPEB. And I don't want to make you any sadder than you already are with that big deficit, but in a couple of years, that unfunded liability is also going to be on your balance sheet or your statement of net position, and that will add another $103 million in the deficit position. So you'll also find budget to actual comparisons. Those are required by Nevada revised statutes, and you'll find those in there. One very important thing that you'll find in the financial statements is that we did not find any findings. We have nothing to report to you as it relates to your financial audit. One of the other things that we do as part of this engagement is a compliance audit. That's where we audit your federal grants. It's very nice that the federal government gives you in the tune of about $66 million in federal funds, but it does come with strings attached, and where one of those strings is you do have to have it audited. This year we audited your special education cluster, the 21st Century Community Centers grant, your high school graduation initiative, and your teacher incentive fund. You did qualify as a low-risk auditee, meaning we had to audit 25% of your federal audit or federal awards. And just based on the way we have to pick your programs, it actually ended up that we audited 33.5%, but it had to be a minimum of 25%. There are 2 findings. This was very hard for your grant department because they usually don't have any findings. But there were 2 findings that we came across this year. And remember that when we're auditing for compliance, there's no materiality. It's either did you comply or did you not comply. So it doesn't matter how immaterial the non-compliance is, we're required to report it. There was a certification for payroll. When you work on a federal grant, you have to certify that your payroll and have a particular document signed. There was one of those that was missing. And it's very unusual for the school district to grant money out to other people. You usually keep and do all of your programs internally, but this year you did grant some money to a subrecipient, and unfortunately, there are specific requirements that you have to tell that particular subrecipient, and because it's so unusual, your grant department just missed that communication with them. You will see the responses to these findings in the audit report. We think the world of your grant department. We hold them up as the gold standard for everybody that we talk to, so they did take it very hard that we had to report these. But in summary, that GASB 68 does overshadow the fact that the school district continues to make progress in a number of key demographics. Record high graduation rates, growth in number of students for the 4th straight year, and the many initiatives outlined in the transmittal letter that can be found in this document are just a few examples of what lies ahead for the school district. And fortunately, you can rest assured that you have very, very qualified people at your financial helm. From an audit standpoint, it was a challenging year. Just with GASB 68, you had new E-rate programs that were going on. But thanks to the pooling of resources with your staff and ours, we're again able to present this within the required deadline. And as we just described, you have a lot to be proud of. We work primarily with Cindy Vance when we do the audit, and we can't thank her enough. I know she is so happy to see us leave when we walk out the door. But while we do, it used to be Gail that we work with primarily. She's now moved up the chain, and now we torment Cindy. But with that, I do want to turn it over for some final comments to Gail.
Thank you. Gail Carson, Controller, for the record. I just wanted to point out a couple of other things that haven't been covered yet. As part of the CAFR that you got both electronically and if you've gotten your hard copy, there is a summary that we've done, and we've pointed out a lot of the different highlights that some were covered by Felicia and some were not. One of the things in there that we add every year is the transmittal letter that is to the citizens, signed by Superintendent Davis and our CFO, Tom Sosinski. That includes a lot of the demographic information for the area, different things about the county, as well as our major initiatives that we're doing within the district. Also in there is a certificate of achievement for the excellence in financial reporting. We earned that last year. That was our 14th consecutive year, and we'll be submitting this CAFR again this year. We believe it'll qualify again. One thing to add to what Felicia said on Note 7, the fund balances, just a reminder that those were all brought to you for your review before they were incorporated in. So we just wanted to make sure that we didn't surprise you with those. And it takes up about 40 pages, but it is pretty important information. The statistical section covers information of 10-year trends that have to do with the financial information, debt capacities of the district, as well as some demographic, economic, and operating information. So I know you've heard 228 pages and 228 pages, but really it's 228 pages. So it takes a lot of coordination, a lot of collaboration. As Tom pointed out, everybody in the district impacts this. It starts with the board policies, carried all the way down into the district, all the way down into the schools and how they do their things. We could not do it without everybody involved, and they do a tremendous job. Also, to reiterate what Tom said, thank you very much to Cindy. The hours on here were not quite what she expected, but she's getting pretty used to them. I think it's her second year. And then also thanks to Felicia and her team. They're always wonderful to work with and do a great job with us. So. Any questions?
I'm going to just make one more thank you because I forgot, so it's my fault. So I also want to reach out, and Felicia touched on it, the state and federal programs led by Kristen McNeil and Rob Loon. I apologize for not catching that thank you earlier. So they're a big part of this as well, and they do a fantastic job, as Felicia pointed out. So just wanted to make that one additional thank you. So any questions?
Any questions? You know, someday you guys are going to have to slow down on these awards because we don't have any bond money to add a trophy room onto the administration building. So, But, so you have 15 and you're applying for the 15th one, huh?
Going for number 15.
Very, very good. Very good. Nice work, everybody. So, possible action would be to accept the capper. Is there a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees accept the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2015, with the great thanks of the board.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same signal. So carried. Let the record show unanimously. Thank you very, very much.
Mr. Mayor, I do have to go.
Okay.
I've been here since 9.
I know. In
Are we
fact,
okay?
On your, you get your tax deal in there. Under there, it's got room tax. That's because you've been in this room long enough. Thanks for the good work today, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, 405 is information update presented by the Executive Director of Ed Alliance regarding activities of Education Alliance, including Principal Executive for a Day, Run for Education, and Partners in Education. This is for information and discussion only. Kendall Incept, what are you doing? Going to order some macadamia nuts? Okay, go ahead, Chief of Staff.
All right, David Lasik, Chief of Staff for the record. And hopefully after today we can end on a couple uplifting items and highlight some good work going on in our district. And so with that, I have Kendall Inskip is our Executive Director for Education Alliance, and Sean McCaffrey is our Collaborative Coordinator for Education Alliance. Just to give an update on some of the important partnerships and work going on throughout the district. As we take our state, from good to great, and take our district from good to great, it takes a village, and we all know that. And our business community always wants to get involved and help us, and the Education Alliance is our conduit for that. And it's a great partnership we have with the district in connecting schools, the work of schools with the business community. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kendall and Sean to give you an update on some activities going on under the Education Alliance.
Got it. Thank you so much, David. For the record, Kendall Inskip with the Education Alliance, and I'm here with my colleague, Sean McCaffrey. Thank you, board members and Superintendent Davis, for the invitation to update you on our activities. As you know, let me just put this forward here. As you know, we are gratified to support every school in the district by actively linking schools and students with opportunities across fields and industries to enrich their experiences in diverse and sought-after careers and educational pathways. And we do this by building and carefully cultivating relationships with business, government entities, community leaders, so that they willingly and generously provide resources for our students and schools inside and outside the classroom. Since I started this job not quite a year and a half ago, the Education Alliance board and staff have raised more than $360,000 in financial support, plus $143,000 in-kind gifts and services, which totals more than $500,000 in resources to support student achievement. That's why we're here. These, the 4 initiatives here on this page are basically the established programs that help us to accomplish our goals that I'll be highlighting today. In August this year, P16 Advocacy Council identified 5 key focus areas to help K-12 students. And since then, they've divided up into working groups and are meeting to discuss ways that they can support the school district. Higher education, how higher ed can help students succeed. Career and college competitiveness, encouraging a college and career-going culture within schools, and not just at the secondary level, but drilling down into the elementary level as well. The data profile has a rich 18-year history coming out of the school district and the Education Alliance. This group is looking at innovative data to inform our partners in education, such as the Nevada System of Higher Education, EDON, the Chamber, ways that information such as workforce data, ways that higher ed can be more receiving and obviously with transfer credits and so forth. That's TMCC and UNR. Early childhood education, supporting the district's efforts in pre-K and kindergarten as we unfold those grants. And finally, computer education, ways to improve our curriculum. So each of these task forces are meeting, and they will bring forward their recommendations through the P16 Council and then through the Ed Alliance Board. So as you know, the Run for Education is our signature community event. What a blast. We've provided a detailed report for you in your handouts, but allow me to touch on some high points. We had significant increases across the board, and we expect it to get even bigger. We had 11% more participants this year. We had a 23% increase in number of students who participated. The Sparks Marina March was a big hit. And there was a 12% increase in the number of schools joining us. 83 of our schools joined us at the Run for Education. And I want to thank Superintendent Davis for providing bus transportation because, you know, a lot of families and kiddos wouldn't be able to participate if they didn't have a ride to the front of Shields there. We had 68% increase in the number of volunteers, and I'm talking across the community. And I did a little research, and that's larger than the city of Gerlach.
Wow.
Twice as large. So this event includes a broad cross-section of 30-plus community leaders from city and county entities, from the school district, from the private sector. They meet monthly, they plan it, they coordinate the logistics, and they make sure it's a safe and fun event for families. And while the numbers are not yet final, we're still receiving gifts. We have one outstanding grant. And last year we distributed about $2,000 to 43 schools for their nutrition and physical education activities, and about $28,000 to fund the TMCC Jumpstart program and the Dean's Future Scholars, which both benefit our secondary students. Finally, I'm really super excited about the relationship and how it's going with the city of Reno. Under the guidance and leadership of Alex Woodley, who is the interim community development director, we secured about $10,000 toward the run this year from the mayor and the city council members to make sure this was a fun event and a successful event. So we're delighted about that relationship. Now, some of you may have already seen this video, but please indulge me. I want you to know that this video was produced by one of our student partners. That's Spanish Springs High School C3 Media Academy student Jared Flora. He's the son of Angela Flora, one of our principals, and he did this great video.
Jared Flora production. Right.
I always want students participating in a new way.
that are out here, they're our future. You know, we have to keep that in mind, is that it doesn't just stop when our kids are gone and we have to give up trying to help out. So I'm here because I look at the kids that are out here and I realize, you know, those are the ones that are going to be taking care of us someday. Those are the ones that are going to carry on the work that we've done. And so it's important to keep support of them. The neat thing about this is that this is people who want to support education. This isn't something that anybody has to do. They want to do this. So these are people that are getting behind education, and they're putting their money and their legs where their mouth is in supporting that.
I can't tell you, that video kind of makes me emotional. It's such a massive undertaking. To see our students having a blast with their parents, it's awesome. Thank you. All right, Principal for a Day. This year we had the most successful Principal for a Day to date. First, I want to thank those of you who were able to participate that day, who served as principals, sharing the hard work that you do, and cultivating helpful relationships with our community leaders. Your handout gives you some details, but again, let me point out a few specific successes with Principal for a Day this year. The new concept of shadowing the executive, as well as they shadowing you, the second part of the day was hugely successful. We've received numerous positive accolades from principals on that new aspect, so we'll do that again next year. Second, we were extremely strategic with the matches this year, basing them on curriculum emphasis, geography, principal requests, and other factors, basically with the goal to open doors to long-term sustainable relationships. Again, we were very successful in achieving this goal, as Sean will share with you some case studies as a result of the day in a few minutes. We are very thankful for the input of the principals as well as the area superintendents who helped us put those partnerships in place. Our partner, Renown Health, not only donated the meeting room, the appetizers, and the swag bags after the event, but also a professional videographer who produced this video. It's about 2 minutes, not quite, and I wanted to share that with you too.
What really stood out to me is like our jobs were aligned in some degree because we are here to serve people and serve others.
What a rewarding experience. I would recommend any business leader, community leader to get involved with the school district in this manner.
It's so big to have them at our schools. I don't know if people truly understand what we're dealing with on a regular basis.
We had a lot of really rich dialogue in terms of identifying ways that we could maybe identify our first partner in education.
For me, it was helpful to really start to understand, you know, from a principal's perspective, what are the challenges that he's facing on a day-to-day basis.
I went over to AACT and I had no idea really about that school and what they were doing over there. I think there's a big role in the future. I really do. I think what AACT does there in their medical academy has an opportunity to help further develop our future healthcare providers in the community.
We're looking at trying to build a partnership to not only facilitate more nurses going into the university system and then eventually back into a renowned health system, but also building some other support positions that students that necessarily may not traditionally go into a college avenue but still want to be in the medical field will have the opportunity to facilitate some of those support roles.
This is a great opportunity for industry and educators to connect and really see what the workforce looks like.
And so ultimately, as we work with kids, we got to listen to our businesses and what they need so that we're providing the kids the skills, whether it's reading, writing, arithmetic, or problem-solving abilities or collaboration abilities, so that when they go and work with businesses or ask somebody for a job, they can say, you know what, this is what I'm bringing. I have the ability to give you a strong day's work for a reasonable day's pay.
To get our little ones into pre-K, how is it that we're going to get them through all the way to 12th grade, and making sure that all of those experiences along that continuum are good for them, and they feel engaged, and that those learning experiences are powerful for them.
So when we talk about every child by name and face to graduation, it's beyond a percentage point. It's beyond a test score. How can the community help us? And we've heard various stories about how somebody mentored somebody, and that meant the world to them, that got them to the finish line. But this is another wonderful opportunity for us to have a great partnership with our community and see what happens in education, and also hopefully that we continue to have good feedback about how we make it better, not just as a district, but as a community.
Thank you. As a result of Principal for a Day this year, the district has 25 new partnerships to bring support and resources. And it's still growing, by the way. So that brings us to Partners in Education. As we like to say, all roads lead to Partners in Education. That's the signature program. It takes student learning from the classroom to the community, and it directly supports academic programs. We currently have more than 120 partnerships in place, including that 25 I just mentioned, and over 40% of them have been added in the last 12 months. One of our greatest collaborations is with Dr. Dana Ryan, CTE and Signature Academy, and I believe she sent a statement on with Scott.
I'm clearly not Dr. Ryan. Good evening, President, Mayor, Trustees, Superintendent Davis. On behalf of Dr. Ryan, who regrets she couldn't be here this evening, I wanted to read some of her comments in reference and in support of Education Alliance. So in the past year, the partnership that Signature Academies and CTE has formed with Education Alliance has truly allowed us to broaden and expand the impact of our work more rapidly than we could have on our own. Education Alliance plays a vital role in our district by taking the interests of business and industry members and matching them with programs, people, and schools who have similar ideas. Examples of this partnership, successful partnership, this year alone include the recent inaugural Washoe County School District Career Expo for 8th graders, where 80 community businesses and agencies shared their knowledge and expertise with nearly 2,000 8th graders. The development of the Regional Passport to High School Success Family Informational Nights is another example. Signature Academy Nights to include all agencies that offer high school opportunities for schools. The partnership to implement an internship database, which will make it easier to match students to opportunities in their career area of interest. Opportunities to expose teachers to industry needs through training, tours, and classroom speakers. Active participation in the Council for Career and Technical Education. Support of student competitions by connecting organizers with potential sponsors, judges, and volunteers, such as the Reed Enterprise Punkin' Chunkin' for those that attended recently, right. And Career Tech student organizations such as Skills USA. These are just a few tangible examples of the tremendous support of Education Alliance and what they provided to us in a very short time. The Education Alliance of Washoe County is truly an extension of our work in Signatures and CTE. We're grateful for their willingness to collaborate with us and consider them an integral part of Inspired and Connected team. Inspired and Connected is the motto in Signature CTE, as you know. So thank you for your support.
Wow, that's great. Wonderful. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to Sean, who has worked very diligently with principals, area superintendents, and school leaders to secure collaborations that are more than just a signed partnership agreement. They are meaningful, they are measurable, and sustainable partnerships that will help students inside and outside the classroom.
Thank you. This is so cool. You know, partnerships, or the Partners Education Program is our flagship program. Everything that we do it comes to everything we do, it has to have some kind of college or career readiness type of theme to it. That is the bailiwick or the monitor of all of our activities. And our partners in ed, how we do this, we meet with every principal, identify what's your priority, what are your goals for this year, and what's the gap to goal to help you get there. And as has been mentioned before, as David mentioned, it does take a community. And so we invite business to the table because they have to be able to articulate to education community what they need in terms of skill set, what's required from an education perspective, what's required from experience, and help us create those pathways for those students to know what they're striving to do in the classroom, make it more relevant. So you've got some case studies in your folder, but a couple of things I want to put some emphasis on. For example, Charles River Laboratories. So the reason that Dr. Dana Ryan isn't here with us this afternoon is because she's meeting with the folks from Governor's Office of Economic Development, TMCC, UNR, and Reed High School to create this pathway or continuum for those kids at the biomed program at Reed High School. So I met with the folks at Charles River back in the summertime, and I had a laundry list of things I wanted to do to engage them. For those that don't know, at Charles River, they do clinical trials on animals, and it's big pharma. It's very, very relevant to the biomed program. So we invited them to come to look at the standards for Reed High School. What can you do? What can you look at? Can you bring your expertise to the curriculum and make it more relevant? So when these kids come through the program, they're ready to go for grade 13, whatever grade 13 is, if it's higher ed or career-ready opportunity. And so businesses like Charles River said, absolutely, we want to be involved because we're all in this together. At the end of the day, there's a lot of overlap between what the business does, the community is looking for, as well as the school district, and we've got some very shared goals and objectives. So bringing business to the table to share their expertise and their resources makes everything very successful. So we've got a lot of those relationships in place. We're very excited about that. And at the end of the day, it's about student achievement, and raising the bar quality of education in Washoe County. We're very happy to be a part of that.
You surely don't take the children over there to see them what they do to those monkeys, do you?
President, Mayor, keep in mind these are high school kids we're talking about.
Yeah, but still, I've been over there and I got sick to my stomach. I'll tell you, I was a no vote when they were going to be in Sparks, and they got to be in Sparks, and then they transferred over there. But some of the experimenting that they do on those monkeys, I don't think I should be seeing that myself.
Sure, we're doing a couple of things. First of all, the first step in that partnership is looking at the curriculum, make sure it's relevant, right? Taking their expertise. And then secondly, what we're doing is we're creating a workshop for 30 educators, CT instructors, and AP science teachers to go over to Charles River, talk with the toxicologists, talk with the pathologists, talk with all the research team about soup to nuts, what it means to go through clinical trials. So the teachers have a very real understanding of what goes on inside of the industry, not just Charles River, but the industry itself. And then these teachers will take that information back to the classrooms and hopefully create the next scientist, or that can create the cure for the next cancer drug and things like that. So there is a very relevant need for Charles River. I agree with you that doesn't sit with everybody, but their expertise though in helping to create these types of opportunities and pathways is real. We're excited about that.
Well, I'm just biased because I've been in there and it's just gruesome.
Do not have to take me.
Huh?
Renown is one of the other very active partners, and they're in about 6 or 8 schools as well, and not just the medical aspect, but human resources, technology, all the other things it takes to run a big medical center such as Renown. But just a list of just a couple of our 120 partners right now.
Actually, Ken, if I can. So you saw Mark Bell. He's the CEO for Renown. He went over and met with AACT and toured with them for the day. And so AACT has a great EMT program, but the conversations from that graduated where they're looking to look at potentially adding on to a medical assisting program as well for that school. So conversations between AACT and Renown are ongoing to create additional programs. So that's very exciting about some of the things that came out of that day.
Mr. Smith.
If I may just make a comment, Sean.
Yeah.
You know, a little over a year ago when I was running to be on this board, you and I met, and I told you one of my concerns was meaningful partners in education. Because when you talk to teachers and people in the schoolhouse, they're saying, yeah, we have these partners, but I haven't talked to them in 3 years.
Right.
Well, I think it's kind of cool that when I'm going to schools and I'm talking to principals, they know you, right? And they know you're helping them make meaningful connections, particularly North Valleys. You've been able to kind of create like a round table mentality there and get their partners together. So I'm seeing and hearing change from the people doing the work in our schoolhouse and our administrators. And I think that's super cool, man. It's measurable, it's great progress. And even we may have some feelings about testing on animals, right? The fact that those partnerships exist and we're able to offer an opportunity to kids who might want those opportunities, and our principals are excited about this now. Like maybe that's the wrong way to say that. Our principals feel a little bit better about this now. It's been revitalized. Is great, and all the power to you. Keep it up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We all know it takes effort to kind of build and steward relationships, and we're really thankful that the principals who are embracing the program, and we plan to recognize them in every way that we can and support them, because there's 2 of us on staff and we need to build capacity, and by having principals on board and their APs or their deans or whatever level that they assign a champion within their school, that helps us to continue those relationships. So this slide, Teachers Warehouse and Redfield Community Outreach Program, also under our responsibility, they're high-profile ongoing community partnerships, but being visible and getting out there in the community has also yielded another wonderful marketing partnership. Sarah Johns of Channel 8 is now producing a monthly segment highlighting the great work that is happening within the Partners in Education program. So at 4:30 in the afternoon, it's been, I think they've covered just 2 schools so far, Mendive and Virginia Palmer. So regular monthly segments on Partners in Ed, which is, we think, pretty awesome.
I don't know if you already talked about it, or maybe I should just take it for the literal sense, but is Teachers Warehouse what I think it is? Is it in the literal sense where there's a place where people donate stuff and they can go get it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't sure if it was like
It's
something
true.
like that data collection warehouse. I wasn't sure. So.
No, in fact, it's a physical location on Edison, and basically it's a place where businesses, and we get dozens of calls every single day to donate, not technology or computers or printers, but all other items, desk items, paper, products, and so forth. And once a year we do a Teacher Appreciation Day. By the way, teachers can go there and shop for free 3 days a week, a couple hours a day, for the resources and some of the products and supplies that they need. And once a year we do a Teacher Appreciation Day, which not only rallies the business and community to come donate that day, but also teachers can come in again and shop on that day. Big marketing day, and I believe the WEA provides snacks and refreshments that day, so they're involved in that day as well. We don't have a date for that next year, but we usually do it in the spring. Anyway, finally, we're thrilled to be within 60 days of launching our new website. And it will serve as the hub that brings together teachers, students, principals, and district leaders with the community and business resources that we need and that schools and students need to foster educational excellence and student achievement and career readiness as well. And that's where we're going to be able to recognize great partnerships and collaborations. In closing, we are really pleased with the relationships we've developed with EDON. As you saw, Val Cotta was on our Principal for a Day testimonials. She's the Workforce Development Officer there. The Chamber, who has donated money toward our Partners in Education program, and our city and county governments, which really ultimately helps us as we go out into the community and seek resources. And we really want to be a resource for you as well. As you go out and visit schools in your wards, you learn about their needs, you learn about their priorities. Please think of us, as you do that. We want to be able to help you, and keep us in mind with ways that maybe we can help you.
Okay, any questions, comments?
I have a comment. First of all, thank you for all the work that you do with our schools and just connecting with community leaders. I remember when I first came here, we talked about Principal for a Day, and I was like, oh, I'm all about it, because I loved when I used to have Principal for a Day at my school, and just having those community partners. And sometimes people don't realize it's bigger than just handing a check, like when people are coming in and reading to your kids or helping put up bulletin boards or just doing the little things around the school to show that they care about the school. And that partnerships fosters like this long-term relationship that I often miss when you're a building principal, right? And don't get to do that so much. You're a different type of relationship. So really thank you for all those opportunities, because I really think it connects the community to our children and this work that we do when we talk about every child by name and face. So thank you for your continued support.
Thank you.
Dr. Taylor.
I'd also like to, in case everyone didn't recall, Kendall was acknowledged and awarded the fundraiser of the year at a big luncheon a couple of weeks ago. I had a chance to be there with many members of the staff. It was a great tribute to her. They just made a fantastic tribute. I mean, they had a lot of awards, but the one that they do last, is the one that everybody covets, and she was the last one to go. So just, so proud of your work and your effort, and other people are acknowledging and recognizing that too. And so it's just really good to see. I know that's not why you do it. It's certainly, but it's just really great for other people to look and say, hey, she's doing a great job for the kids of the district. So thank you, and congratulations again.
Yes.
I too would just like to say thank you so much for all the work that you do. I do a lot of interaction with local businesses in the community, and they're always looking for ways to support education, and it's so exciting for them to know that we have a program like this. So thank you for all the work you're doing, and I too have been hearing similar things to what Trustee Smith was saying in terms of the schools and the principals feeling more engaged, more aware of what's available. So kudos to you for all the work that you're doing and getting out there, and it's very exciting from our kids to give them those opportunities, to get them thinking about their futures and careers, and I having attended the Career Expo myself, as I talked about and raved about at the last meeting, it was quite an experience, and I know you all played a great role in that, so thank you for that.
Thank you, and I just want to put in a plug. Don't have a principal for a day on Tuesday. Our meetings start at 2:00, and you can't even go to the wind down party, so try and get it on other days other than Tuesday. Okay, thank you. You too. Okay, next is a presentation by staff regarding the new administrative building. Oh, we got a new administrative building? No. New administration building, telephone greeting for information only.
So, good afternoon, President, Mayor, Trustees, and Superintendent Davis. This is going to be really quick. So if you're a community member and you're phoning the Washoe County School District and you get the main line, what you get is a recorded phone message by grown-ups telling you all manner of boring information about press this, press that, do this. So props to Fatima and Michelle behind me. They came up with this idea. I mean, for goodness sake, we're all about children, aren't we? So why don't we have children actually recording that message? So it gives me great pleasure to play for you this evening the new Washoe County School District phone greeting that is going to go live tomorrow. JJ, take it away.
Thank you for calling the Washoe County School District. Para comunicarse con alguien en español, oprimir cero.
Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
For student enrollment information, including transcripts, press 1.
For information on school transportation, press 2. For school police, press 3.
To reach the Human Resources Department, press 4.
To reach our Communications and Community Engagement Department, press 5.
For the Payroll Department, press 6.
For a full list of schools and departments, please visit our website at www.washoeschools.net. To speak with the Welcome Center, press 0. This message was provided by Camila,
Spencer,
Addie, Evan.
There you go.
All right.
Very good. Very, very good.
So kudos to our little kidlets, our 4 kidlets up there whose mums all work in and around the communications department and family and school partnership. So that's rather cool, isn't it? And with that, is that a good thing to finish on today? I think it is. Thank you so much, everybody.
Very, very good. Okay, 5.01, public comment. Anybody want to make public comment? Seeing none, the next meeting will be December 8th, 2015 at 2 p.m. here in the Central Administration Building Boardroom. We are adjourned.